Hey, Mike,
Yes, sir.
just doing a check.
Yes, sir. We're good.
Cool. You barely even touch it.
Let me take this off for just a moment so it doesn't sound so muffled. Trying to speak so loudly. I want to welcome everybody to today. We have an opportunity to present what is going to be our reentry as a listen and learn. Typically, you see this setting in a very different way as we conducted listen and learns across the city and continue to do that work in a variety of forums. This is our virtual opportunity to come to you guys and want to welcome you to our reentry plan. With that, we have an agenda that we're proposing for tonight, and we're going to try to stick very closely to that agenda. What we're doing right now is going to continue to be an overview of the Midland ISD Listen and Learn virtual format. We'll provide an overview of Midland ISD's our reentry options, and that'll be a presentation from team staff members. We'll give you an overview of the family and staff surveys that we've collected, and we've conducted over 3 surveys to teachers and staff. We've conducted focus group informational sessions with parents, teachers, and staff, as well as with students, and surveys from teachers, staff, and parents as well. And so we'll get this information out to you and begin to share what we are looking to do to present what is going to be our reopening information and options beginning next week. But we wanted to roll out a number of variables that we have as we go into that point. We're going to respond to questions. And so as we respond to questions, we received an opportunity to get information out to parents. You were able to provide us with questions, and there are a number of questions. We grouped some of those questions together because a lot of those questions are tied together around the topic. Let's say pre-K as an example. So we grouped those questions in order to respond. We got the highest frequency of questions that you'll see that come towards the end of the presentation. And then we'll be available with team members outside of our cabinet team that will be able to address those specific topics like we would do in any listen and learn that we operate from. You're seeing the Midland ISD leadership team. That's who's seated with us today. They'll be able to dive deeper around questions that go from the Chief of Staff and the Reentry Foundation and format, our Human Capital Chief Woodrow Bailey, who's going to provide any staff informational pieces for our staff members. We have a General Counsel, Sid Pounce, who will be joining us in just a moment. That's addressing all the legal updates that we're getting from the agency, as well as from the CDC, as well as from the state that we need to put into application, as well as things that come pretty rapidly, like from the governor as an example. You'll get updates from the Chief Academic Officer on what the implementation will look like once we get into the school setting. The Chief Transformation Officer, Dr. Elise Kell, she's going to present what is going to be the online footprint that we'll have for parents available no matter what option is selected or chosen, that we introduce as a school entry option, that we'll have that as an option, the online footprint. Our Chief of Communications is the one who is bringing us and bringing this to you at this point in time, and we're excited that we're able to still reach out to you and provide information that comes through the Facebook Live invitations that we have on Thursday. It comes in this format. It comes through the board meetings that we've been doing virtually as well. Chief Operations Officer James Riggin, as well as Kelly Spencer, are going to talk about the facilities and how we're navigating facility operations and how we're putting all those pieces together so that the time your student gets on the bus to the time that they enter school, how our facility is going to be set up through transportation, through food, as an example. And we have our Chief Financial Officer, Daryl Dodds, who's managing what we budgeted going into this school year was $1 million to go towards what could be any operational needs that we will experience during COVID that are not reimbursable through the CARES Act or through the state. We have subcommittees that were built as what we call design teams, and these design teams took on the task of building what was going to be reentry. We closed in March, just after spring break, that Monday of spring break. You've done a phenomenal job of being patient and navigating what that looks like. You've held on to most of your hair, which is a good thing, because I have not. And it's allowed us to get to a point where we can provide several models for you. Parents, you've done a tremendous job. Staff members as well. Thank you for what that journey was like. We want to pick up that journey from you so that we can instill what could be the next plan. That came to the reentry, if you go back for me one. That came back to reentry with the Chief of Staff, and Dr. Atkins formulated a plan. It is a plan, a working plan that we have that facilitates all these particular areas. One, Dr. Goodnow will speak to is instructional continuity. how we bring optimal learning to you and your family so that our kids can gain their instructional needs, knowing that we are all starting from the same point across the state, across the country, once we begin the fall 2020 launch. We'll go again with operations and led by Kelly Spencer, who's going to talk about facilities and health and safety. Diane Martinez, our Executive Director of Elementary Education, is talking about the instructional resources that you're going to need in order to navigate these platforms. One, you see many of us here with a laptop. You'll see that this is a driving force behind what this looks like. Our board and its adoption of the 2021 budget we put in place a recommendation for a one-to-one, an opportunity for students to have a device so that we can instill what this footprint could look like for time to come, time on time, not just for right now, but well into our future. Our Chief Transformation Officer, who was introduced a moment ago, Dr. Elise Kell, she's going to talk about the virtual learning and what that's going to look like for you. It's a new academy that we have for parents to enroll into. That time will come, so be patient, parents. Parents who navigated the March transition from having our face-to-face to going into virtual. Some of you guys did really well around that, and we wanted to allow you the opportunity to continue in that footprint. Parents who may have some concerns, we've allowed an opportunity for you to navigate and continue into that footprint as well. Jill McCall, the Executive Director of Student Services, she's going to talk about what are the ways in which we navigate all these moving parts around how students come and go within this. If you apply Midland as an example for you to be able to apply and get into the academy so that your student still remains a part of the campus, but is in the academy. And the teachers who are on the campus are teaching your kid in the academy as well. And if you're looking to transition back, you transition back into your campus. And we have Dr. Gregory Nelson, who is the Executive Director of Human Capital, that talks about business continuity. New language that we're introducing. He's talking about how all the operational pieces stay and flow together, our people, our money, and how we tie all those things together. He leads that particular area. And Blake Belt, who is the Executive Director of Athletics and Extracurricular Activities, he will come in, right down at the end, Sid, he will come in and share with you answer questions around what it looks like around extracurricular opportunities for our students. That would be guided by what is our UIL, the University Interscholastic League, the governing body of extracurricular, UIL specific. He'll help guide what that looks like around athletics, as well as take on what are questions that may come up around fine arts. So it's a virtual format, and we're coming to you with this, and no matter whether we're present or now, there are several things that we ask. One is respect, one is addressing the community, and then addressing our commitment, making sure what we say is what we do. Along with respect, we're going to be conscientious and authentic listeners. We want to take your feedback. We've done it via surveys and have a number of responses that we've done via surveys. We've done it with focus groups, hundreds of people sitting in a community in a virtual format, providing feedback for us. And we're doing it right now to present out what we talked about with the board yesterday, as well as what we're continuing to discuss as we prepare for what opening could look like. And we're going to be receptive to new ideas. We're all in this in a new way. We are building in 2 months what we've built over centuries for learning on how kids approach their learning. So during this time frame, we've digested a lot of information, and we've had to be receptive to new and different ideas. As of today, new ideas are coming from, not just ideas, but requirements, recommendations are coming from the agency, the Texas Education Agency, that are coming to school district to say, this is how you should approach it as of today, new updates. With the community, we're going to seek and work together to find ways that we serve all of our students. We want to focus on your interests, and the Online Academy has spearheaded itself out of that interest. And we're going to work to maintain a sense of humor. I mean, and through this all, I think keeping our morale, our motivation, our sense of humor is going to be a grounding aspect of what we do to make this work happen, because we are going to make mistakes without a doubt. We're going to do something, and we're going to need to pivot, adapt, adjust what that looks like, and build upon that as we grow forward. Our commitment is that we're going to put our kids first every day. There may be some sensitive items that could come up for discussion. We ask that people be respectful around what they're hearing and what they're sharing. And we're going to share relevant information and explain our intentions as we move the conversation forward. We'll have a platform where all that will land. We have our fall 2020 website where all this information that we collect will be placed onto that website, as well as a recording of this information so that you can go back and see or share. So throughout the spring and summer, we've been working tremendously around developing a comprehensive reentry plan. People often say, oh, it's summertime. You guys really don't do a whole lot in the summer. No matter what we're going through, whether it be this COVID-19 pandemic or any other year, we work tirelessly through the summer to build out what is the planning and strategy to begin the next school year. This has just put a twist on what we typically do in order to build a whole new foundational aspect to help us grow. We've collected feedback, as I've shared multiple times, from families, staff, and community members, and we will continue to collect feedback. The survey, I know you probably have survey burnout because we're asking you a lot of information. We're trying to keep them short and concise and get to the specific question so that we're not layering questions to try to get to what we want as a response. We want to get the heart of the information and be able to collate and pull apart, and we call it disaggregate that information, and then put it into our planning and strategy. So we're going to continue to do that. And we're going to do it through Listen and Learns, as this opportunity is providing us. We'll give you some details around the reentry planning, and that will be shared by team members. And we're going to answer your questions. You'll see a timeline. Our goal is Monday, August 3rd. We've had that marking point for a while. Trust me, it has stressed the team out to say that is your end point, to say all things need to be built by that time frame. I'll tell you, Dr. Kell, when I mentioned that, to say we had to get this online academy built in a month and go to work. And she's done a tremendous job to get that landed and lifted. So you'll see what those timelines look like, and we're going to adjust. And that's going to be a part of this whole piece, gathering feedback and being able to adjust. I ask that you know that we're doing it with the greatest intent. Trust is an element that layers through all of this. And I would hope that you look at and see that it's built with the greatest intent and the greatest amount of trust to do what's right for kids. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Atkins so that she can then take you through the surveys that have been conducted. We started this in May. We wrapped up just last week so that we can gather as much information for what it looks like for us. Early on, it said one thing, and we were in a different place in May. Well, now coming into July, end of July, we are certainly and clearly in a different place at this point in time. And so now we've had to make adjustments along the way, and our surveys have adjusted us to think through what offerings we need to present to our community. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Atkins.
Okay, so thank you for participating in those surveys. As Mr. Riddick has just referenced, it's important for us to collect data throughout the summer because throughout the summer, so did the changes throughout the summer, so did changes throughout COVID-19 occur. And so we sent out one in June and through a family survey. And it's important to note that we had a number of families, a large percentage of families at that point in time, who were potentially interested in an online option for their students. And any well-informed plan must be based upon data. And so this certainly helped inform our plan. We moved forward into July, and that did change. And this is noteworthy because as we've had increased numbers of COVID, I think a number of our community members have also been increasingly concerned. So as you can see right here on this slide, we have about half of our it really is almost half interested and uninterested in a full-time virtual learning option. And so this does inform the work that we do and the preparations that we need to make. And so those responses were very important for our next steps. Moving forward into July, we looked at, first of all, what would be the likeliness of one's option changing by the end of July? Are we going to have a lot of mindset shifts? And overwhelmingly, the response received was about 70% said that it was unlikely to change. And so that gives us some solidity in moving forward with some plans as we work towards that August 3rd date. We also wanted to look at health and safety and what parents in July, what their concerns were regarding health and safety, and what couple of those two things that stood out. The top reasons was feeling concerned for students' health and feeling concerned for the health of people in their household. And this was really important for us to take in consideration these concerns, because that's going to impact the way we move forward and the way we respond with an informed plan. Also in July, we wanted to understand a little bit more about families who were not interested in the Midland ISD Online Academy and the reasons why they believed that an in-person situation would be a better fit for them. And there were several top reasons, one being that they felt that academics in an in-person situation was strongly was more desirable. They also felt that their child is learning better in an in-person environment. We want to understand and respect that. And what exactly does that mean? What aspects of an in-person environment impacted that success? And also social emotional health being in the school building. And that's something that we are building out and taking a close consideration as we move forward. The social emotional health of our staff and our families, our students, everyone involved, that's got to be a priority. And so you will see a lot of the work that we've been doing has been prioritizing social emotional health as we move forward with any sort of academic plan that we put in place. We also looked back at our teacher survey in June. So it's again important to look about where we were then and then where we are now. We went to look at what sort of medical concerns our teachers had, and overwhelmingly those who responded had just general concern about health and safety as it relates to COVID-19, and that's certainly understandable. We also looked at most recently the impact of level of concern COVID-19 relating to campus and work environment, and we noticed that we had the largest percentage there. They were extremely or moderately concerned over the impact of COVID-19. And those are some things we take in consideration also when we plan. What are the concerns? Why do they have them? And how does that impact our next steps as we move forward? We also looked at the start of school and looking at our staff survey, looking at what they felt would be which options they would support as far as the beginning of school in August versus a fully virtual launch, and to what degree they supported that. And overwhelmingly, we have 65% of our staff that responded. And if you notice there, that was over 2,000 responses that were received. So that's a good representation of our MISD staff with their support of at-home learning as we begin in August. We also wanted to look, so if we have that demand, then also virtual teaching, how many of our teachers, what percentage of our teachers would be interested in that full year option? And so 40% is a significant number of teachers who are interested in providing online instruction or very interested in providing online instruction. So if we look at that middle column, I'm very interested. That's nearly 40%. That's a significant number, and we take that also in consideration when we look at our staff. So at this point, this informs a variety of reentry scenarios that should arise and that we need to be aware of and responsive to and develop. So Dr. Lisa Goodnow, our Chief Academic Officer, is going to share further with you about what these reentry scenarios entail and what these next steps could possibly look like.
And I know this slide is a busy slide, and it's got a lot of information built into it, and not designed to have you get your reading glasses, but certainly designed to give you some information. So if you're not able to see and follow this, it is going to be online, so you'll get an opportunity to dive deeper as she speaks to it and speaks to all the scenarios that we might be able to address. Dr. Goodnow.
Thank you, Mr. Riddick. And it is a busy slide, but I think it's a great way to sort of get an overview of the different scenarios, and then we'll dive in a little bit deeper into each one. So we really are looking at 4 different models, and each model is really aligned to what's happening in the community and what the COVID-19 virus is doing in our community. The one exception to that is the blue Midland ISD Online Academy. So no matter what's happening in our community with COVID-19, we know that it's still going to be there. And we know we have families and students who really do want a full online experience. And so we are building that with the Midland ISD Online Academy. The other opportunities for learning correspond to, again, what the virus is doing. So if there's low to no community spread or other indicators that we're paying close attention to with our health officials and with state guidance, we'll be able to do on-campus instruction. We'll have school buildings open. That said, we are still going to implement preventative measures. If we have moderate community spread or other indicators that are pointing us to really limit the number of people on a campus, we're going to do what many people are calling hybrid. So that's sort of blended learning instruction. It's kind of 50% of the students come on an A day, 50% would come on a B day. I'll dive into that a little bit more. And then when they're not at school, it's going to be an extension of the classroom, and that's where we jump into at-home learning. The other piece of that is that we absolutely know our pre-K through 2 students and some of our students who are served by special populations and special programs absolutely need face-to-face instruction. We understand how much better that really is for little ones. And so we want to ensure that for families who are choosing that we are providing pre-K through 2 life skills and other programs for students. The final sort of column there is substantial spread, and that's should we need to go into full district closure, or if for some reason we might have to have what we're calling micro closures, where you might have some schools close if it's deemed necessary. And so that really is then taking that extension of the classroom all the way home. It's so much, we've had so much more time to really build what that at-home instruction is going to look like and feel like, so that we really hope it becomes an extension of our classroom. So we can go to the next slide and I'll dive in a little bit deeper, and that you can sort of see that some of the questions here, we'll start beginning hopefully to clarify for you. On-campus instruction is what we all are hoping and can't wait to get back to. We can't wait to see your students, and I think it's going to be good not just for their social emotional health, but for ours. If there is conditions that allow us to do that, we're going to make sure that we've got students wearing masks. Really, in grades 3 and up, we're going to encourage our little ones to wear them, but we understand that it's hard. We will be maintaining social distancing in the classroom as much as possible. We'll have lunch in the classroom, and we're going to be really careful about how we transport students. We definitely are going to need parents' help on this. And I can't stress enough that if students are not feeling well, if we can get back to on-campus instruction, I really do need to stay home. We also are going to always, through every single one of these scenarios, have that Midland ISD Online Academy available. So our next, some questions kind of related to that was, when does school start? So we start, we're following the academic calendar that was adopted by the board. We will start Wednesday, August 19th. 2 exceptions to this are the Sam Houston Collegiate Preparatory Elementary, which starts August 5th, and the Idea Travis Academy that starts August 11th. Another frequently asked question is, what is the plan for students to return to school? And that's really what we're digging into now. We've got the 3 instructional models based on the level of COVID-19 in our community. We're going to look at and decide what model we're going to launch with on August 3rd. You will always have the opportunity to go full virtual, and we'll dig into that a little bit later too. If I select to send my student for in-person instruction, will the district provide best services? Yes. The district is going to continue to provide bus service for students, and we're going to implement safety procedures to ensure that buses are properly ventilated and cleaned. And we'll also have other preventative measures like social distance on buses, and lots of ways to sanitize and lots of hand washing, even on the bus. What happens to face-to-face learning if another closure occurs? If this is necessary to close a school for either a short term or a long term, students will continue learning under the at-home instruction model. So if we kind of look into our next model, it's really blended learning. And I do want to let you know that you'll see lots of districts are calling this the hybrid model. Midland ISD is building a blended learning model, which is really taking what we absolutely learned in the spring about how powerful technology can be in servicing students and how to really amp that up. So we'll be doing blended learning in the classroom. There'll be some technology in the classroom, but when the student goes home, it should be a seamless kind of transition. So we're certainly not going to put kids in front of screens all day, and if it's their Monday A day, but we will refer and point to the assignments that are in the Google Classroom so that students are comfortable with it and parents are comfortable with it. So it's like at-home learning, but just an extension of the day that they had before. And then the very next day they come back after being at home. The teacher will be able to pick up right where we left off. So the blended learning instruction is something that's going to be, I think we're going to be able to leverage to really help us all be better teachers and learners and stronger. So a couple specific questions to that, or what am I supposed to do about my childcare if we're in blended learning? What do I do on an A day, and what do I do on a B day when I have to go to work? Midland ISD is partnering with Right at School and others to provide childcare offsite for days when students are learning virtually. We'll have more information on this, and we do have the website that will continue to push out, and it's kept up to date. Will I be expected to be the teacher on the days students are at home? No, we don't expect a caregiver to become a teacher. Instruction will be provided for students Monday through Friday by MISD teachers. So again, if we're looking at how that Google Classroom connects to the learning experience on campus. If students are at home on Fridays, what about athletics? We still are providing our students with the opportunity to compete in games and practices. This is true for our fine arts as much as possible as well. You would need to bring the student to the school for sporting events. So that is one piece that we're looking at help with, and that's transporting the students back and forth in those days. So our last model that, if again community spread were so high and there was a significant risk to public health or closures mandated by the state, this is when we'd really look at that at-home instruction. We'll still have technical support. We'll be getting as much technology out and for our students that need it. We're going to use the platform Google Classroom, so it will feel a little bit more like a classroom, and there'll be consistency for teachers. So we're trying to minimize all the different kinds of ways that we learn so that there's more of a consistent look at, for our students and our parents. Feedback should and will be ongoing. Certainly we'll be able to provide feedback on the platform itself. You might have teachers recording lessons and then loading them up. There might be opportunities for real-time instruction, but all of that would be captured and recorded. And we would still have grab-and-go meals. So some questions about at-home instruction. How will the at-home instructional model compare to the virtual instruction provided last spring? During the spring, schools offered enrichment, and students it was a pass-fail basis, and that made sense at the time. We've been able to really lift at-home instruction now so that we will be engaging with students every single day. That's the expectation. That doesn't have to be in real time, but we're going to be looking at the level of student engagement. And we are going to be assigning grades and feedback, ways that students can learn clearly what they need to practice and get better on, and different ways to do that, and then letting them know when they have mastered those really important standards. So it's going to feel different. it's going to feel more like, again, an extension of what they're getting in the classroom. How close is the one-to-one technology to becoming a reality, especially given the possibility of at-home learning? The school board approved the purchase of iPads and Chromebooks last night, and technology will be distributed during the school year. We're going to start lifting that as quickly as we can. And again, being very mindful of what we might be coming into. We'll be thinking about the assignments from that lens.
So parents, you've seen these models before. A lot of it's not new, right? So we know what face-to-face looks like. Everybody boards the bus. Everybody's excited. The school year is starting. The bell rings. Your child's in their best, right? They couldn't sleep at night. They get up in the morning and they take off. We know what that's looked like. We've done that for a century. We now know what closure looks like because we've had to go through that experience, right? March brought that to us. We had to understand how to adapt and manipulate what all that looked like. We've learned along the way that there are a number of parents who do not like what it means to teach my 5-year-old how to read or my senior calculus. Understand all that dynamic, and we've modified what that could look like, but that could potentially happen where we have to go back to a closed model. Not what we want, could happen. Now what we're learning is what we heard in the middle is the middle plan, right? The idea of blended learning. We're taking all that information, and that's what we're going to launch into. We're gathering information from great partners here in our community. Our hospital, a very good partner. They're leading people who are guiding the infectious disease and coordinating what that looks like for our community. We're in conversations with them. With Midland Health, the health department, we're gathering that information as well. And so with that information and with your help and with your information, this team is building out what could be the best potential model to start the school year. We're starting on time. You clearly have said we don't want a calendar that interrupts what we've already adopted back in February. We're keeping to that by saying the 19th is our start date. Any days that we close beyond the 19th would either extend the day or extend the year. We're looking at saying, can we stick to the model and adapt and build this into that model? And whether it's a closure that we have to begin with, it would close in a virtual way. We know that. We would stay there in a short duration of time so that we can then begin to implement the next best model for us to re-enter. So I'm going to now turn it over to Dr. Kale, who's going to launch you into what is a very exciting opportunity. Many of you might take this on. It's our 21st century learning guidance. This is what we're all diving into right now. And she's going to jump into our online academy.
Yes, so I want to introduce you to our online academy and our thinking along the lines of what we're doing with the academy. And the first thing I want you to know is the Midland ISD Online Academy is designed for the family who's looking for a long-term virtual learning environment for their child. It's not a short term, it's a long term. So you have already made the decision in your head. And please know, whatever decision you make for your child, that's the right decision. It's your family, it's your child. That's what's important. So when we look at the online academy, we're going to have the same standards that we have in the schools, and they're going to be robust, they're going to be strong. We're going to be looking at accelerating student learning. We are going to have teachers that are dedicated to some of the online learning. We've got to make sure that we are thoughtful of the teachers that are doing that and don't overload our staff. We will have an application portal. Please don't go to the application portal right now because it's not active yet. We will look at activating that next week, and that information will go out where you can apply for your child to be in the online academy. So when we talk about what are the options within the online academy, it will serve all students, pre-K through 12, are eligible to be in the online academy. They will be participating entirely online through this academy. Now, something to remember is even though you're online and you have a skill-based course potentially through CTE or athletics or fine arts where skills are required for the learning, you will have to have your child come to the campus during the day for that course. When we apply, we will do that through our Apply Midland platform, and we will have it where you register or apply for your online academy through your campus. We will have more information coming out about that. Students will be required to submit an assignment or illustrate some type of engagement with their instructor on a daily basis. Most of the lessons, the majority of the lessons will be virtual lessons. So a kid can log in at any point in time during the school day and receive instruction from their teacher. And then there will be periodic check-ins with the teacher throughout the week. Submissions of engagement could be something as simple as project learning, where they do an assignment, they make a video and they submit it. They work with another student on a project and they submit the final product. Or it could be as simple as you're taking a test or you're reading a book, and how are you going to prove that you've done that? And there also may be some discussion boards available. Grading within the online academy will follow standard guidelines. That is a requirement from the agency. We will follow that so that there is comparability between students that are in the online academy and those that are in our on-campus instruction. When we look at different questions that have come forward about the online academy, a big one has been, will our students remain enrolled at their school if they choose this remote learning? Yes, they will. So if you already have a seat at Pease Technology and Communications Academy, or you have a seat at De Zavala Elementary, or you have a seat at Lee High School, you will retain that seat at that campus. You will receive all the communication from your principal at that campus. So you will be a viable component of that campus, and your child will still be involved in the culture of that campus. Can you change your selection of the Midland ISD Online Academy once it's made? Absolutely, you can. However, we are asking that those changes only be made at the end of 6 weeks grading cycle. There's various reasons for that. One is staffing. Our principals have to know how many kids are going to be in the building, how many kids are going to be learning virtual in order to be able to appropriately staff classrooms and to maintain the appropriate social distancing. So it's important that we're able to do that and we're able to plan. So if there are changes made, then we have to be able to take care of the master schedule in that process. Will the Midland ISD Academy curriculum be the same as face-to-face instruction? Yes, it will. We are obligated by the state of Texas to follow the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills for each content area. So we will be following that process because we want your child to master those student learning outcomes, and we want to accelerate their instruction and prepare them for college and career. So if you select the online academy, will your student be able to participate in sports, band, choir, theater, any of those activities? Absolutely, they will. And we look forward to the opportunities that will come forward with the online academy. I'm going to kick it back to Ms. Ladd, our communications director.
Thank you, Dr. Kale, and thank you to all the presenters who have given us this great overview so far. That was a big dose of information, and we've got a big dose of questions from you guys. So at this point, we are going to shift into answering those questions that you submitted to us. And many of you asked the same question using slightly different words. So I'm going to be picking out one of those examples, but please know that we did receive your question. Now, if you are tuning in partway through and you're wondering, maybe you didn't hear your question, please know this whole thing is recorded, it'll be archived, and it'll be up on our website. Additionally, all the questions that we address here now will also be added to our FAQ section. So lots of ways to access these answers if you don't hear them right now. So we are going to start with just some general reentry questions. And Dr. Atkins, we received quite a few questions around when school is starting. So could you just reiterate for us when school is starting?
Yes, I can. School will start August the 19th.
Great. And is it going to be starting online?
That is to be determined, and we will share that out August the 3rd. We have been conversations with our health department and also with our hospital. And so taking that in consideration, also with our survey data and also with the guidance from the CDC, we take all those pieces of information into consideration when we determine the model through which we're going to begin.
Thank you. And one of our parents wants to know, are there resources for parents with multiple kids in school online?
Yes, so we are, if using an online format, we have opportunities for parents to engage with or for their students to be able to engage in an asynchronous sort of environment. Asynchronous meaning that not everyone has to be at the same place at the same time. We understand the realities of parents not having the one device for each child. That showed up in our survey. We are very excited about our one-to-one initiative that will be coming through. We will not have that on the first day of school because we're still ordering those devices, but we are excited to be able to provide that support, as well as support for parents when they have questions with technology. During closure, we did stand up a technology helpline that did provide some resources. We're going to continue to build that out and make it even more robust, not only for teachers, but also getting our students aware on how to and more well-versed on how to utilize that helpline.
Right. And another one of our parents wanted to know if their child will be attending school, will there be after school care?
Yes. So we are partnering with Right at School, and we will continue to do so. We have been in multiple conversations with also some off-site locations for Right at School. And some people have asked, well, why off-site? Why not on campus? So on days where your student is virtual, and we're talking, for example, the blended model, we want to make sure that we are also socially distancing. So having large groups of students on a campus at one time is what we are trying to prevent, because we know that is an effective mitigation effort when we are spread apart and we have fewer people on campus. And so that is why we are asking and partnering with some other offsite locations to be able to operate Right at School program for those students who are in need of that.
Okay. Now, can kids attend school both online and in class? For example, could they go to school Monday through Wednesday, online Thursday and Friday?
So the way we have set up is if you are exploring an online option, and referring back to what Dr. Kale shared with the Midland ISD Online Academy, that is intended to be a full-time or at least for a 6 weeks period of time in order to ensure instructional continuity and also to ensure some appropriate staffing. So that's the reason for that online academy. Should we be in a hybrid situation, then our students would attend on one day, and then the next day would be their virtual day.
Okay, so they can't necessarily pick and choose which days you'd be in school versus at home, that you'd need to follow the schedule under the blended learning.
Correct.
Okay. What kind of supplies do our kids need this year to be prepared, knowing that they may be doing virtual learning, they may be in school? Will parents need to be prepared to print and copy at home?
So in a virtual format, we are working to ensure that they don't have to print and copy multiple packets. We really want to make sure that a virtual opportunity is virtual. But with that, there are going to be situations where they're going to have to practice a skill. So for example, if you are working with motion and energy and things of that nature, building a ramp or something to that degree would require some hands-on innovative opportunities. So it's not sitting in front of a screen for that duration of time, although you will be getting your information information through the Google Classroom. But the practical implementation of that will require also opportunities away from a computer screen.
Okay. And we had another question again about if you have multiple siblings at different campuses. So will the schools that close have to make up that time at the end of the year while the rest of the family is potentially already done?
So that is going to be certainly a unique situation, and one in which that we're working through as far as a protocol is with micro closure. And a micro closure is a situation in which a COVID case is confirmed, and due to that COVID case, we would need to close a school or a portion of the school for a period of time, for a short period of time, maybe 3 to 5 days, something to that degree. That would be something that would be without our realm of control, because we cannot control where the virus chooses to assert itself. And so in that case, that may be a reality. We certainly want to be responsive to those parents and continue to address those needs. That is a scenario that could possibly be there, but we will work with parents to make sure that we are providing the best options around that possible.
And to add, I would just say that's what we're trying to avoid. That's what the previous calendar that we presented was designed to make up, so that we wouldn't extend the time. That could be a reality of what we might have to go into. But the idea is that if we can get to this virtual learning, right, and the campus closes at a certain point in time, can those kids continue in their learning while they work themselves back onto the campus? And the state has provided us provisions to allow for that time to be inclusive of what that looks like. We're gonna have to work through that as we move forward. You can imagine there would be closures happening all over the district. And so as that's occurring and happening, we'll have to adapt and pivot on what we introduced at that point in time, no matter what the model is on model 1 or 2. 3, we are all at home. So we'll have to work through what that looks like. And we're asking parents, please be patient around what that looks like, so that we can ensure that we're carrying on what happens as a closure occurs.
Thank you, Mr. Riddick. Finally, we have a parent who just generally wants to know, are there safety precautions in place for their child to return?
Yes, so we have built out a robust response in order to make sure that our students are safe. One thing that we have encouraged families to do is to start now determining which mask will fit their students' needs. So I think I've shared previously, I've been through a number of masks. One fogs up, one doesn't. I'm not using my mask right now because I'm socially distanced away from my peers and I'm trying to speak to you. But we need to make sure that our students have masks that are not causing them to scratch at their face, that fit their face, that it's not obstructing their vision, and various masks fit various students in different ways. And so that's one thing that we certainly that ask that parents start now. Don't let the first day of school be the first day your child is wearing a mask. And again, our grades 3 and up, we're aligning ourselves with the governor's order on wearing masks. And so that is something that we are doing not only with our students, but also with our staff. And so masks are definitely things that we need to make sure that we are preparing for. We are also ensuring that we have hand sanitizing stations throughout our campuses, plenty of PPE, personal protective equipment, and sanitizing, and that routine sanitizing, not only cleaning and sanitizing and disinfecting when needed, but that is going to be done on a routine basis. And our teams are being very well trained in that process and making sure that it is a consistent process.
Thank you.
And I would just share that the first piece is you, parent. It starts at home. If your child is not feeling well, we are asking that child stay home. That's about the greater good of everybody and the quick return for that student to come into the campus. It starts when you get to the bus, where students are going to be hand sanitizing their hands. The driver will be in a will have their personal protective equipment, their PPE. It goes to what Dr. Goodnow explained around social distancing as best possible on the bus with windows down when it's the weather's not inclement, meaning it's too hot or too cold, being able to navigate what that looks like, and then getting to the campus and starting that entire routine. It's about cleaning every day. It's about UV ray machines that are able to go into a room and disinfect and clean a room within 15 minutes. It's about the cleaning supplies and equipment that we use on a daily basis. It's about now where we talked about, we instituted this academic language called brain breaks, which were a relief time to allow kids to get the movement, because movement's very important around learning. Well, now we have to institute hand washing, right? So that has to become part of the protocol of a student during the day. Teach your child hand washing. I mean, just those simple aspects, right? Because kids are quick, right? They'll just do this real quick and then say, I've washed my hands. You need to teach them that the duration of time, what does that mean to take away all what the bacteria that you have on your hand to go into the next location? We have those built out throughout the day. You know, you go outside, we're going to have recess. You got to come in, you got to wash your hands, you got to wash your hands. You go to lunch, we're going to have lunch. You got to wash your hands, you got to wash your hands. That's like a before and after aspect, right? So what does it mean to get your day started? You need to sanitize your hands when you're walking into the building. So, and kids touch a lot. And so we've got to understand how we build out that into a routine so that your child is safe. We've got the safety protocols built in for our staff so that they're wearing their mask, their face shield, the protective gear that makes them comfortable in order to teach. That's going to be a requirement amongst our staff, but we do need your help. Let not be the first day of school, not only the first day to try on your new shoes and your new outfit, but also your new mask. Because you got some really cool masks, right? You got Superman mask, you got Batman mask, you got sayings, you got a lot of cool things that come. But don't let that be the first day that your child is activating how to use that mask. And we got to work through mask fatigue. That's another piece that we're going to have to be conscious of as kids are wearing their mask as part of what that routine looks like.
Thank you, Mr. Riddick and Dr. Atkins. And I just want to clarify. So masks are optional or required? What do we need to know about wearing a mask?
So per governor's orders, we are making sure that students, and it's not just students, people ages 10 and up are wearing masks. That's in effect until he says it's not. And so that is something that we are doing. Grade 3 is where we're asking, where we're going to be starting that. Younger than that, we are making that optional. There is, different thoughts on that, but that is certainly an option. So I have a second grade student. He will be wearing a mask. He's already been practicing with his mask, and he has his very favorite one. So like Mr. Riddick was sharing, there's a variety of masks that fit out there, and let your students start practicing with those and utilizing those and becoming familiar with having that on their face as they are sitting in the environment.
If you want your child with a mask, a face shield, a hazmat suit coming to school, know that sometimes when you comb your hair, the child's hair, it's all beautiful and pigtails look just right. But when they get home, it looks completely opposite on how they started the day. Just know that that's going to occur and happen. So, be cognizant of all those things when you're thinking about, I want my child outfitted this way and what the expectation on return could look like. And practice. It's an important piece, right? Rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. It's going to be an important part of what that looks like.
Thank you. With that, we're going to go ahead and shift over into some of our questions specifically about the online academy. And we know you all had a lot of questions around this, and that makes sense because it is brand new. So Dr. Kale, pivoting over to you, we had a parent who wants their child to learn remotely from home, but they would like to know if it's a full day for kindergarten.
Well, when you talk about kindergarten and whether or not an online learning situation will be full day, that's basically dependent upon the content that's going to be provided. We're not going to have them sitting in front of a computer all day. That will not be required. There is content that a kindergartner has to learn, and that content will be delivered virtually to the kindergartner. There may be an opportunity where the teacher wants to have reading groups, and the teacher might want the kids to come online and have small group reading and things like that. And then there would be kids being online at the same time. But primarily it will be based upon the needs for the kindergartner and what fits the kindergartner, the pre-K, the 12th grader for their learning needs at that time to meet the content standards.
Great. And so will online homeschooling be provided through NISD?
I'm not sure what I can define as online homeschooling, but if it's what you're thinking about in the spring, then no. Our online academy will be taught by MISD teachers, and your student will still be enrolled in their school, and they will be following the same curriculum that the face-to-face students will be having. So parents will not be expected to instruct their child. We'll want them to be learning coaches and facilitators and to support your child, especially our littles, because you know how they are. You live with them, and they have challenges, and you've got to be able to prepare them just like you have challenges with your teenagers and what they do. So
we have another parent who wants to know if online classes will be available for the whole school year.
Absolutely. Our goal is this is a school that is available for parents that are interested. This is a school of choice, and it would be available all year for any student and family that wants that.
So how do we sign up for online school?
We will be using the Apply Midland website, which is midlandisd.net/apply. However, as I stated earlier, please don't go there now. You won't see anything. It won't be active till next week. We will put out notice when it becomes active for you to officially sign up. We have a restriction from the state where we cannot make a parent commit until 2 weeks before school starts. So we're being cognizant about that, but that also creates a challenge for our staffing, our staffing for our principals, and for deciding which teachers are going to be teaching these courses, and for the counselors in developing the master schedules. So as soon as it opens, we will let you know, and we want you to go in there immediately and make that decision, because as I also stated earlier, I'm sure our parents already have made the decision about what they want to do. And if you know you want to go online, go ahead and apply next week when it opens.
Great. And so we know to look for that really soon, but then what is the deadline for signing up for enrollment for virtual?
Hoping you wouldn't ask that question, Ms. Ladd. We're not absolutely positive what the deadline is going to be yet, but we are looking at potentially the weekend before school starts. That will give our counselors some time to make final changes in the scheduling process. So that's our target, maybe like August 14th, but we're not hard on that deadline yet.
And it's a staffing piece so that we can ensure that we have the number of adults to meet the student need. If you keep that open, the student need drives, and we've got to fix what that looks like on the face-to-face side. So we had to put a cutoff so then we can know how to match up what we call the student-teacher ratio, so that that teacher knows these are my class and these are my kids, and we can then load those kids into a Google Classroom, and that teacher's able to do the introductions and things that you want with your teacher, right? You want to know who your teacher is, and visit ahead of time on what we call like meet the teacher night. So we want to be able to establish all those things for the online academy opportunity that would exist for our students. So we have to get a marking point where we say we need to end.
I think another key point of that is if I have my child at Days of Allah in second grade and 2 kids apply for online at Days of Allah, but yet we've got, let me pick another campus, Henderson, and we have 35 second graders that applied, then we've got to figure out how to balance that, because our goal is that the teachers from your child's campus are the ones doing the online lessons so that there's continuity across the campus. However, if we have a disparity between the enrollment, for the online academy, then we've got to be able to balance that out and what that looks like, which goes back to the staffing.
So sticking with talking about dates and deadlines, if a student is enrolled in the online academy, will they be able to switch to in-person learning on campus at the end of the current grading cycle? And will the grading cycle still remain at 6 weeks?
Yes, our grading cycles will remain 6 weeks. We had a little confusion earlier.
That was me.
And-
Thank you.
And the boss said it wrong, but we fixed him and we let him know we are a 6 weeks district. We will not be changing that. And if a parent is interested in their child going either from on-campus instruction to online or online back to on campus, that will be done at the 6 weeks mark. However, it will happen before the end of the 6 weeks. You will get notice and we will ask for that information if you want to return back to on campus so that we have time to make schedule changes and make any staffing changes if necessary.
And that's how we keep continuity, right? Our whole plan is that a student can thrive and keep continuity. Although there's going to be some struggles along the way, we want to get good marking points for the child to transition into the next platform if one of those platforms is not working for the family. It's the best way to do, no matter whether we're in this environment or you're in another environment where we're all together and things are moving well and you're in an academy and it's not working well. You want to find those good points to step off and move into the next transition that you're looking for your student.
Thank you, Mr. Riddick. And that addresses the next question I was going to ask, which was, if you choose online learning and it just isn't working for your student, will you be able to change? So it is good to hear that that answer is yes. And Dr. Kale, just specifically, how would that parent and student make the change?
We're still working through the details for how a student would make that change, but right now it will probably be campus-based because the campuses know their kids and they know their master schedules and they know what the needs are. And so that's something that we're working through and we will communicate out later.
Okay, so look out for more information coming on that. So, you know, in considering if this is the right choice for your student and your family, a lot of our parents wanted to know what a typical day of online schooling looks like.
Wow, that's a great question. And one of the products that we want to be able to produce, and actually the great committee that I'm working with that is composed of teachers, administrators, principals, assistant principals, counselors, special ed staff, special services folks. They are looking at that and they are trying to create what that schedule might look like. We're looking at pre-K 2. What does that look like? Then we're looking at 3 through 6 and what might that day in the life look like. And then also junior high and then 9 through 12, what that might look like. So we're hoping that we'll have some potential schedules available for our families soon about that.
Can you talk through synchronous and asynchronous?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, definitely. So synchronous instruction is when all kids are learning at the same time and everybody is virtually connecting into, like right now, this is synchronous. Asynchronous is when after we have finished the recording and we post it and then somebody goes and watches that, that is asynchronous learning. It's not all happening at the same time. We can actually do both of those through the school district based upon the guidelines that we've received from the agency. So there is opportunities where both synchronous and asynchronous might happen, but it's not a requirement that it be synchronous. And actually our little ones, we don't want to do synchronous very much with them as a whole group because that's like wrangling 18 earthworms and that would be very difficult to manage. So we want to make sure that we're thoughtful in how we go through that process.
So to the question, will online classes be taught live or pre-recorded? The question really is, will online classes be taught live and pre-recorded? Because the answer is yes.
So that leads into our next question here, which is one of our parents notes that, there's a certain amount of minutes that need to be taught for the district to receive funding for each student. But how can you monitor that in an asynchronous online platform while a student is at home by themselves? If, for example, a parent is at work, is there, how would we keep them on track?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's a very knowledgeable parent to be asking that question. Because we are required by state law to have 75,600 minutes for your child throughout the school year. However, with the changes with guidelines from the agency, when we submit our asynchronous plan summary, we are then, and it's approved by the agency, we are then relieved from the online academy and any remote learning to from those minutes. But we still must be able to record attendance, and we must be able to prove engagement, and we always prepare for potential audits. And I don't know, I'm looking to our CFO because he oversees all of that, and I don't know if you want to add anything or if you're good with what I said on that. He's good.
Will you
with what I
share
said.
the ways in which we gain knowledge that a student is in the online academy and in the class?
Sure. The ways that we do that is through engagement. That can be through logging in. That can be through interaction between the teacher and the student, which could be a phone call. It could be the virtual learning like we're doing right now. It could be through engagement, and that engagement could be the submission of assignments, discussion board conversations. Anything else? Dr. Goodnow, do you want to add anything to that you can think of?
I think anytime you might be able to create small collaborative groups where students would be able to demonstrate kind of online, a safe online chat in the Google Classroom, that's a demonstration of engagement. A video where a student might display the mastery of that standard, that's engagement. So much of what Dr. Kale is describing will be similar. We're trying to be as seamless as we can to what we're looking at for at-home learning in the blended model. The only difference is that the student will be prepared to come back into the classroom, and that will sort of, I guess, maybe up the accountability for their peers and their teacher. They're going to see their teacher face to face, but they're also going to be connecting with their teachers in the online academy and their peers as well.
Office hours are another example that through the academy, the teacher will establish office hours. Let's call that tutorial. So a student who's needs shoring up of a gap of learning, then they can go into the office hours, and that's another aspect of accounting for a student to be in the class at that point in time. So know that exists not only in the online academy, but that exists whether it's in the blended learning as well, because you're going to be going face to face, and we know what that interaction is like, and we know how to account for a student being present, right? Roll call, looking at a seating chart. When you go to the virtual day, that's when we know that your student is engaged. That has to happen every day. Can't game the system, right? Can't go in the online academy and say, oh my gosh, I see the week's content. I'm going to do it all on Monday. That means I don't have to show up on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I'm clean and free and clear. If that is the case, you are not present Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for your learning. And thus your student could be deemed not doing the assignment, not doing the work, not getting the credit, not moving and advancing in the grade. Although a smart student who knows that I can accomplish it all in a week, or I wait till Friday at, 10 p.m. before it ticks to midnight, and I get it all done and submit all my work, you have not been accounted for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Let me say Thursday as an example instead of Friday. So then your student is not getting counted for the 3 days and no attendance. That only means, one, we're not getting funding for the student who is present and ready to work. And two, your student may not advance to the next grade level or receive credit for the class.
And another critical component of that is our high school kids still have to meet the 90% attendance rule, even if they are in the online academy. So it's important that we have those accountability measures.
So online doesn't mean all liberties of what you want learning to be like. It does mean engagement daily.
So a lot of different indicators there, and I think we'll be learning more and more about that, especially for those parents who choose that option. So for those who are going down that route, what kind of materials will they be looking at? Is there a different school supply list? Will they get textbooks to take home? How does that all look?
Yes, we believe the materials that will be needed will be the same that would be needed in the classroom. Of course, you're not going to provide, if you're on the online academy, you're not going to bring Clorox wipes. You can leave those at your house, but you'll still need crayons for the littles. You'll still need paper, pencil, all of those items that are on your supply list now at your campus. You will need those items. If they are materials that are needed specifically for a course, such as a textbook, and it's not a virtual textbook, then those will be issued by the campuses and provided. Same thing for digital devices. Our goal is to get those in the hands of every child, and we will do the best that we can to meet our kids that are in most at need for those devices. They'll receive them first, and then we'll move out from there.
Okay. And just a few additional questions about what this online instruction will look like. Will students receive additional assistance in area of need, like, small group breakouts and those kind of practices?
Absolutely. We think that the online academy will provide opportunities for differentiated instruction unlike anything we've ever seen before. And we have an opportunity in Midland to create something that's never been done in Midland before and provided to our students. And so it's very exciting that our teachers will be able to take the curriculum, look at a child's learning needs, address the gaps that are there, and structure specific learning plans for each child based on those, and develop small groups to work on skills. When you're in a classroom and you're trying to set up groups and you've got 22 kids in that room and you've got 5 different groups and you're by yourself, it's a little challenging to manage. And being in an online class, you can say, okay, this group's going to come over here. We may have a breakout room, or we may just have a session here, and we may just work together. Our high school kids may say, hey, Starbucks, we can go to the patio and have a coffee and do our project together and meet the needs that are there for our learning. So there's lots of new opportunities and ways to engage in education for our kids.
And a cool feature about our learning management system is the ability to create breakout rooms. That's a new feature that Google's created for us as an opportunity so that we can then put kids into groups monitored by the teacher with the assignment and monitored so that they can ensure that that group is doing what's required for whatever portion of time that that teacher needs that group built in and working on.
Okay. And we had one last question on this, which is there a way for parents to view the online academy, in essence, have a virtual tour of it before making that selection?
I would share that you've had that since March. It's not the online academy, right? You've had this experience since March, and you've kind of launched your way into this mindset. Homeschool parents have done it for a while, but it's not been through a lot of the mechanisms that we're trying to bring forward. And some of them have met that. So I think you've been touring what this mindset looks like, but there's not yet an opportunity for you to dive in and swipe and look to see this is what online academy is going to be as an experience. What you have in your home is what that experience is going to be like. And what the teacher sets you up with in regards to other participants who are in the academy is what that experience will be like. So you'll get it along the way, but right now there's not anything tangible that you can walk into and grab. Thus, it's a virtual online academy. So you'll see as we build that out, what it could be like to see who are the teachers and what's the curriculum and what are all those things that you might want to touch and dive into, but being able, and what are virtual trips that you might be able to take, or how do kids come together or not come together. You'll get that as we build and grow forward.
Great. Well, with that, we are going to shift over to additional academic questions with Dr. Goodnow. So, Dr. Goodnow, we will stay on that same question, actually. A different parent wanted to know if they could tour their child's school before the first day of school.
We're looking really, that's almost a facility and safeties question right now. We really are trying to limit the actual number of people who come in, but I think I'd have to really call on Ms. Spencer to tell us where we are today. Like some of the questions we're dealing with, are we going to get to have a meet the teacher, not necessarily a full-blown back to school. And right now, given where we are in our community context, we're a little hesitant to say go forward and do that. We're looking at how we can do that virtually. Now, I do think there's possibilities for actually giving virtual tours. We've gotten really good with video equipment and being able to upload things, and how lovely it would be for a principal and their staff to be able to do a virtual tour. So I think that that's a more likely probability right now.
Great. And I know in the spring, we had some of our in particular, our kindergarten teams post some really fun videos up on their campus websites too. So that might be a good place to start.
Yeah.
So, so switching gears a little bit, we have a parent who has a question about uniforms.
Oh, yeah.
Why aren't all MISD schools in a uniform system?
So the quick answer to that is that really the uniform is it's a campus decision, and it's really there's a process that's followed with the campus improvement team, the campus improvement educational committee, and as that team comes together working with the community, that's when you would make the decision to go to more standardized dress.
Okay.
And I do expect people who are in the online academy to be in a uniform. I'm just playing.
I was like, what? Oh, okay.
I am not a uniform person. I will just tell you that. But we do have campuses that do have a uniform. It serves its purpose. It's methodology, and it's just something that you've got to decide if that's the campus that you want to adhere to, and if it's a criteria that you think free dress. I'm looking for a non-uniform school. Just know that dress code is a part of every aspect of every school. Now, whether it's a red top, a blue top, or a green top, and you want to be wearing purple tops, that goes into a whole nother piece. But there is a dress code requirement for every school, and you got to work through it. I will tell you that is probably as we develop and grow and build, that's probably at the not the top end, because lunch and uniforms usually rise top for everybody. But that is something that we will work through. But right now, what the standard dress is for the school is the standard dress.
And so, Mr. Riddick and Dr. Goodnow, just to clarify, because we're using different phrases here, what is the difference between a uniform and dress code?
So I would share a uniform could be very much like this. Ms. Warren, the requirement every day is for this grade level or for this student, you should be in a red top and dark bottoms, right? Whether it be khaki bottom or other material that's dark, not denim. And that's a requirement every day for that student to wear. So a parent can then say, oh, great, I'm going to buy 4 red tops and 3 black bottoms. And that is what I need to outfit and clothe my student for the week. Tennis shoes, we don't, it can be pink, green, blue. I've not seen a heavy requirement on tennis shoes, but that's what that student needs to be in every day. On the other hand, a dress code could be that you can wear something that is school appropriate, right? It would mean that I cannot come in a tank top as a young man or a young lady into school. I cannot come in short shorts into school. I cannot come in with torn, holey jeans, although you'll see kids sneaking through that are dressed that way and waiting to be caught. And they knew when they got up, they shouldn't have put it on. And wearing that to school. So there is a dress code requirement, right, that says jeans with no holes, right? And no holes in any appropriate place. no half tops. So when I say that there's a dress code, there's an aspect of what we want as an expectation for learning. If we value the learning environment as one of the most elemental ways that we want to guide kids around their morals, value, ethics, and beliefs, and ensure them with strong, rich academic content, the student should come appropriately ready to address that. I often use church as an example, right? If you go into a church environment, you are not expecting your child to wear short shorts and a tank top or a half top walking into the church service. Not that, God cares what you're wearing, but I think there's an expectation through your values of what you want your child to be ready for. And I tell kids, you just want to be ready, whether it's to be in a full uniform or to be in a dress code. You never know what opportunity is coming before you, and you want to be ready for that opportunity and not have to say, I have to go home and change. If you have to say that, then you've not been ready for everything that I just spoke to. So there is an idea that uniforms provide an opportunity for families to know, I don't have to worry about, matching anything. I don't have to worry about getting outfits ready. I don't have to buy an array of clothes. It can be very quick and simple and structured. A lot of people have done that. Jobs and others and Gates, they say, this is the style of clothes I'm going to wear, and I don't need anything else outside of this window. So very influential people have designed what is going to be their uniform. So it works. And then there are others who say, I want this free dress and this freedom to choose how I put my clothes together, but it has to be done in a way that's appropriate to approach what is one of the most valued things that I consider to be when you walk in the classroom to approach your learning.
Thank you, Mr. Riddick. So our next question here is around how much time kids would be on a device daily, looking ahead to this school year.
So we're very sensitive to the amount of screen time, and also in households where you have multiple siblings, the screen time is both a premium and it's also an incredible draining experience, as anybody who's been on a lot of virtual meetings or Zoom calls can tell you. So we want to balance the amount of time that a student's actually engaging with the screen and completing work that is available with the multiple online tools that will be embedded into Google Classroom, especially when it's a way for a student to display their understanding of the content and the skill, and potentially even help us uncover where learning gaps might be so that we can personalize the learning, as Dr. Kale was talking about earlier, to accelerate a student through potential learning gaps. That said, we're looking at that time. It could be, I'm going to log on, I'm going to engage and not necessarily take a test, but I may upload an assignment, I may answer a discussion board, and then I'm going to break away and close that screen, and I'm going to open my short story and read Sandra Cisneros, and then annotate, and then come back to the screen and answer some questions. So it really should be a good mix. The amount of time will depend on actually the assignment, but the truth is, when you really start designing online curriculum, you kind of take 8 hours and you cut it in half, and then you cut it in half again. So you want to consider the amount of time that you're engaging with that screen. You lose people and you lose students pretty quickly if it's just all the time. So we want to be mindful of that and have it kind of engaging on and off.
Great, thank you. So speaking about, different types of work, assignments, one of our parents wants to know about when assignments will be due. For example, is it possible that a student could have to turn in an assignment on a weekend with weekend due date?
I don't see a due date necessarily on a weekend. You might have some weekend expectations of homework, much like we do now. So I think what we really need to look at, again, is the critical way that we are defining engagement. So if a teacher assigns an assignment on Monday in class, face-to-face, the expectation then is that student would work on it at home and have it due the next day, or they might assign it face-to-face and have it due that Friday. but it's still critical that the student gets online and completes elements of that work or other expectations on their at-home learning day. So I'm really trying to shape some of my responses to how blended learning fits into this. It's still an expectation that a student engages on one level or another every single day, but you could have several days in which a student could work on that assignment. It's really kind of, you think of at campus, and then I'm extending my classroom experience to at home on that at home day, and then I'm going to come back in. So it's very common for us to assign something on Monday that's due sometimes 2 to 3 weeks out, but they're daily expectations and check-ins that will help us get to that end goal.
And one thing you want to think through, parents, also is you want to do some research, and given the opportunity, if you have the devices to be able to conduct that, and if you're watching us, you potentially do, is think about flipped learning. It's a whole methodology that was designed years ago on how current classroom teachers, not in our current pandemic, can deliver instruction for a student, and what can occur at home with a student, and what happens when the student returns back into the classroom. So what we're trying to do is create an elemental model around our blended learning that develops this flipped classroom on what do you need to conduct at home and do your learning, and then how, when we come together as a whole group, how we go through that experience so that it could be very rich, where I'm not trying to teach you and do it all within the same time period.
Okay. So we have a different parent here who has a question. She wants to know, she states that she doesn't want her child to attend class with everything going on right now. So could this parent teach her student from home after getting out of work at 5? She works 8 to 5. Could she have a practice where she teaches her student in the evenings?
So I certainly see that as a great opportunity for the Midland ISD Online Academy. What the state has provided us is the ability to take attendance with that student engagement for really for 24 hours. So you can have your student, and I would encourage the students to engage in learning activities even while you're at work and learn. But if you're going to come home in the evenings and then sort of check in on them, we don't want necessarily parents to be teachers. We want parents to be coaches and facilitators. And so if that coaching and facilitating time is in the evening, as long as there is that touch point, that engagement in which we can capture attendance, and you're able to move your student along that arc of learning, the Midland ISD Online Academy might be a really great option for you.
Great. So speaking about timing and timeframes of things, we have another parent who wants to know, what is the time frame and the expectation for teachers to respond to students and help them?
That's a great question, and we've really we're talking about defining that. I'm going to think about that again in terms of blended. So if a student asks a question when they're in the class, sometimes we take it right away. Sometimes we let them know we're going to get back to you with that answer, right? Let's go through the lesson, and then I'm going to be able to address it. So it's really going to be similar. Of course, in class, a teacher has a discretion to say, let me come back around and answer that, or right now, let me take that as a learning opportunity. Our intention is that on those at-home learning days, the teachers are still responsive. So teachers will structure their time much like an English teacher needs to be able to grade papers for the class that's coming back the next day. They'll take some of that planning and prep time to check in and see what questions are coming up for the students who are at home and respond. So we're looking at what, like, is that 24 hours? Is that 8 hours? What's reasonable for a teacher? But at the same time, an expectation that they're checking in with their at-home students as well as they're checking in with their face-to-face.
And it's also a matter of plugging kids into the resources that are available to them to gain information. An example would be, my son will ask me, well, how do you spell? Whatever that word might be. I refer him to several other options before I just give him the option, right? Because I want him to go through his learning and understand, here are the resources that you've been provided, whether it be your technology device, whether it be notes that you've written, or whether it be a textbook that you can refer back to help you get that, or whether it be an elbow partner, someone who's in your chat group or in your group that you can get to. So it's going to be a learning experience for everyone to know, how do I activate my voice in order to get at what I need to as a question? And then how does the teacher then address it individually with the student, or take it, like Dr. Goodnow said, share it as a learning experience for the whole class, because that question is prevalent, and I want to be able to take the whole class and have everybody pause and address whatever that learning need or that learning gap may be. It will be a work that we do not only currently when we're not in a pandemic, but it is a process that we take kids through all the time. Sometimes it comes fast, and sometimes it's a process, and sometimes, we miss, right? The question just doesn't come, and the student is left without the answer or the approach to take it. It does happen. It's not meant to be intentional. It does happen. We have to work through how to address that learning need for that student when the need arises, and how do they activate how they get it as well.
So sticking with, time frames and expectations, our parent wants to know what happens with testing. So for testing, would you have to be in school?
We're looking at a range of different ways that we could even deliver assessments. I think that what we want to move away from is the typical idea of a test, although there are ways that we can do that to ensure that that the student is answering the questions. We don't want our students to come and our face-to-face time be testing. We really want our face-to-face time to be teaching and learning. So the idea is shifting away from necessarily all the testing to different kinds of assessments that are real time, especially this first semester. This first semester is a time for us to spend really kind of uncovering what students know and where their gaps are, so that we can build their knowledge so that they can be back on grade level as quickly as we can. And so we do that without threatening or punitive tests. We really do that by saying, let's see where you are, and then let's get you to that next level in learning. And so it's moving to proficiency and mastery of a standard, which is a little bit different than necessarily testing and grading. But there will be times when we have summative tests or exams in high school, and we'll expect that the students do that either online, because there are ways that we can kind of monitor that. We're looking into different tools that will help us do that. Or they'll come to school that day, and they will know that that's the day that they're going to take that essay exam. So it's going to be a little mix of both, but I think it is a mind shift. Again, there's opportunities in this pandemic, in this era, that can shift our thinking away from I'm always working for a grade, and instead I'm really working for enduring learning. And that's less threatening, and actually provides much more agency for a student to really own where they are in their learning.
Great. So we had a different parent who was concerned about work and assignments being posted without the teaching and instruction. So what does that cadence look like?
So I think part of it is what, again, if think about what Mr. Riddick said, sometimes it's okay to ask students to explore on their own first. So that is that notion of the flipped classroom. But when we would be in that hybrid model, they could explore and learn and inquire and learn how to make mistakes, and that's also okay. We actually learn from our failures far more than we learn from our success. So if we're kind of using some inquiry learning, they might investigate first, but then absolutely when they come in that next day, the teacher will have looked at the product in Google Classroom and know exactly where to pinpoint that direct teach. It could be that if a student has mastered that content already or those skills, they can move on and accelerate through. And that might be more independent work, either on computer or, more tangible if it's face-to-face, or that provides the opportunity for a small group that a teacher could pull to sort of do what I call clarifying misconceptions, or sometimes called reteaching. It really is teaching it differently. So this is a way for us to kind of be even better at that. But I do want parents to know this isn't going to be loading up a bunch of PDFs and just say, go do the work. We've transformed kind of our understanding of blended learning through this.
Great. So our next parent wants to know, just simply put, will virtual learning be a necessity this year?
Yes. Next question. It's not the optimal. I think the blended model is probably the optimal way to think about how how we can approach learning in a synchronous or asynchronous environment, meaning all together, or you're able to move off at your pace, and it gives you that learning along the way. I think it's going to be our model as some virtual aspect from this point moving forward. I don't see us regressing back to before March, where we did not consider that to be an option for a parent, not just with the online academy, but how we might think about how we deliver instruction. We've allowed it to be, you come in and you learn for the 8 hours and you do your virtual on your own outside of the day. Now, how do we work to incorporate that option and build it into a product that affords kids where they are today? My son is gaming with his brother, who is in an entirely another city, right? So our kids are experiencing what this looks like in a daily routine in regards to how they interact in an environment that is virtual. So how do we now engage them in a great, authentic learning way and incorporate that with their learning as well? And we've got learning to do on that, because we've said you should sit in a row, you should be in a desk, and there should be someone in the front of the classroom for so long. Now it's about how can we break that model and think about how we introduce something, but that we don't swing that pendulum so far that it's just entirely a virtual experience, and not afford the student to know how you gain agency, how do you interact, how do you collaborate together, how do you get stamina in a classroom with paying attention and doing some things that are going to require you to be college ready or workforce ready once you leave us. So it's going to be a part of our build out for what I could see for quite a while.
Thank you, Mr. Riddick. And Dr. Goodnow, we have one final question, and this one comes to us from a parent of an incoming kindergartner who is starting school for the very first time. And so her concern is not so much about COVID, but about, what the school experience is going to be like for her daughter. And is she going to get to enjoy her first taste of school?
Oh, I certainly hope so. I mean, whether that would be on the online academy, but we absolutely can still have fun. We're recommending masks for the little ones, but we also understand that they may end up on top of their head, and we also are going to be very attentive, I think, to making, you can make a really fun song, not just happy birthday, but a really fun song out about how you wash your hands. Or we're always teaching our kinder students the SEL skills, those social emotional learning skills, about how do I recognize my feelings, how do I learn to regulate my own behavior, and how do I respect my other friends, my new friends who I want to hug, who may not want to be hugged right now. How do I respect them? Really, students and little ones are very open, and we can work. We're also aware of what it's going to be like, but we can work to make it super fun. It's just going to be different. Some of our songs times might be different. Our carpet time will be different. We'll have different sort of spacing in the classroom, but absolutely, if we don't have fun and attend to the needs of all of our students, and that's true for our kinder student, and that's for our senior, who I really can't wait to graduate this year and give them the best senior year they can. But there'll be maybe fewer hugs. But there absolutely will be ways that we teach air high fives or, virtual hugs. There's lots of different ways we can do movement and dance that still will attend to those needs of our kinder student. But if learning isn't fun, then learning really doesn't happen. So absolutely, that's our goal. And yay, welcome to Midland ISD.
Thank you, Dr. Goodnow. With that, we are going to shift over into some of our special education questions that came through. And we know there are some very specific circumstances out there, and Ms. Warren is here to answer some of those that you did submit. So our first question comes from a parent who rightly states that everyone's individual circumstances are different. This parent has 4 children. They all go to different schools. 2 kids are on the 504 program, one for dyslexia and one for ADHD. So how would these students be accommodated if we are in 100% virtual learning?
Sure, I can answer that just simply with the fact that each and every one of our students that are on a 504 plan or an IEP will be addressed individually. We can create some programs that may fit the needs of the bulk of our students, but we know that we have to look at those students on an individual basis, whether that's going to be on a virtual model or in person on campus. Our teachers will have access to those plans, and we'll make sure that they are provided the training to implement those plans, whether that's in person or whether that's online. What's important for us to understand is that each and every one of our students that have a 504 plan or an IEP are afforded that plan with whichever model the parent chooses. So having 4 students having multiple disabilities to understand, that is something that it'll be up to the parent to choose what platform, but we're prepared to match that model whenever they make that decision. So let's talk about some specific examples, whether that may be her dyslexia, her ADHD. So we'll kind of go through some of those situations. And I may not be able to hit every disability type that's out there, but many of our answers will generalize over into some other disabilities. So for dyslexia, we utilize the Take Flight program through the Scottish Rite Hospitals. I'm very familiar with that program, and in the past, they have not provided a virtual platform for that program. That is different now. They have now provided a virtual platform for that. So we can serve our students in dyslexia in whichever platform our parents choose. With that, I think about ADHD because a lot of times that goes hand in hand with the dyslexia condition. So what we've looked at for ADHD is implementing that 504 plan in the in-person platform. But then also if we do that with a virtual setting, a lot of our programs have embedded supports for our students. And our teachers are aware of those and will be trained on those and will know how to use those. I know that we have some students that attend certain programs specific to a disability, such as autism. So another specific example of how we could do that is creating virtual lessons that are one-on-one, very specific to that student to address their social skills. So many of our students, their IEP develops over time. And what we'll do is consider where our students were when they left in March, address what needs they've acquired over the summer and through the school closures, and then create an individual plan for them when they return.
Thank you. Our next question had to do specifically around autism and dyslexia. And I know you just mentioned dyslexia, but can you speak about what sort of supports will be there for students with autism?
Absolutely. So I know that many of our students with autism experience difficulties with sensory needs or the needs that they have around their schedule being known and knowing about those changes that are occurring for them. So that is something that we can implement, whether that's in person or online. So we'll implement the 504 plan or the IEP with Fidelity, whichever programs we provide before the school closures, and then also with whichever platform is released out on August 3rd and with whatever the parents choose.
Okay. So can a dyslexic student still enroll in MISD's online school and say attend their home school on needed days for their dyslexia and speech courses?
I know that that may have to be answered through student services as far as which school the students enroll in. But if they are attending an online academy, their dyslexia needs will be met. If they are enrolled in an in-person blended model, their needs will be met. So at this point, it's not necessarily a question about where they're enrolled. The question is, will the 504 plan be implemented? And the answer is yes.
Thank you. And so during, let's say this dyslexic student was in online school, are there certain hours that that student would have to be logged in for?
As far as the therapies that are provided for our students that are served in dyslexia, the Scottish Rite program that we utilize called Take Flight does have a certain amount of usage and instruction time. If we start to shorten that or change what that looks like, we start to impact the effectiveness of that program. So our dyslexia teachers are working with the virtual model and what Scottish Rite has put together so that when we implement that, our parents will know how much time to set aside to make sure that their children are accessing the program and utilizing it to the full extent.
Okay, great. Well, that covers the questions we had on special education. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, we're going to go ahead and skip over to some athletic questions with Mr. Felt. So we had a couple questions on this and might have touched on a couple of them already, but we've heard them a lot, so they bear repeating. If a student is in the online academy, can they still participate in sports?
Well, Dr. Kale touched on this a little bit when she was talking about the MISD Online Academy a little bit earlier. And the answer is yes, that they will be able to participate in extracurricular and co-curricular activities offered at their campus. One thing that I think is of the utmost importance for all families to understand and fully understand when they choose this option is that it's very, very important for them to understand the many guidelines that come with this when they choose and make this choice. They have to be in attendance. They have to go to practice, whether it's band practice, whether it's football practice, volleyball practice, what have you. They have to come to practice. If it's a time where we're having our athletic period or their band period that is within the school day, they're going to have to come up there for that. So yes, they've chosen this virtual option. They're in the MISD Online Academy, but being in the online academy and athletics or band, that's not playing video games. You've got to be on the team, and to be a part of the team, you've got to go up there and practice. And I think it's very important for all of our families and students to fully understand that they have those expectations that they have to meet as team members and or group members. The other issue, if you choose this option, is that we may not be able to help you with your transportation to get up to the athletic period and get home and get back to practice, whether it's volleyball practice, band practice, choir practice, what have you. So that's another issue that needs to be very well thought out when you're choosing this option. Another guideline that is going to be strictly followed is we're going to have entry and exit guidelines for everybody that chooses this option. And very simply, the reason why we're doing this is for supervision issues. In other words, we can't have kids come up for basketball practice and they show up, an hour early for basketball practice, and there's nobody there to supervise them, and or they show up when they're supposed to show up for volleyball practice or band practice, what have you, and when it's finished, to hang around for another hour and sit in the gym and play basketball. We can't do that. And we don't have the manpower to do that and to supervise those kids throughout the day. So there's going to be some very strict guidelines to if you're going to choose the online academy and choose to participate in extracurricular and co-curricular activities. Obviously, we want them doing that, guys, in co-curricular and extracurricular activities. The more people participating in that, the more students we have, all the better, because we believe that's such an integral part of the school day, and it's so very important to all of our students. So we want those students involved. At the same time, they need to understand that there are some restrictions and there are guidelines that they're going to have to follow if they're going to do both, if they choose that option and they also choose their extracurricular activity. And they need to understand if they're not going to be able to follow those guidelines, then they're not going to be able to participate. But again, yes, they're going to be given the opportunity to participate, and we want them to.
Great, thank you for that. Sounds like definitely some things to keep in mind and consider. We had one parent who specifically wanted to know about softball. Is this the same across all sports?
This is the same across all sports. If you choose the online academy, it doesn't matter if it's softball, baseball, band, volleyball, what have you. They're still going to have the requirements that are set that they're going to need to meet to participate in those activities.
Okay. Now, do students need to have a physical done this year? And especially if they choose to do the online academy?
Well, yes, they have to have a physical. The UIL has changed the requirements where we can use a student's physical from the previous year. I will say this, because of the situation this year, we're going to do that, but we strongly urge all of our parents and families to please get a physical before they participate in any of our activities. And obviously, that is a UIL rule that we have to have a physical on file before they can participate. Yes, we'll use the one from the year before, but we would prefer that they have a new one.
Okay, that's
And Coach, I'll just add, just if you could elaborate a little bit. Also, it's just smart, right, to ensure that your child is healthy year over year, and you get with a physician as a normal routine, which is how I built my own aspect based on the physicals I took as a athlete back in the day, and moving forward. That yearly there's this checkup that goes through, because year over year we find things with students that we did not find the previous year, based on some additional things that we have done over the last 2 years with looking for any kind of heart ailment that a student might have that we might need to refer them. Your physical doesn't go that deep, but it's just smart practice.
Yes, sir. Matter of fact, it's really of the utmost importance that they take the time to go do that before they participate. And like you said, things can change very quickly from one year to the other, from one physical to another. And I've seen it through my experiences in the business from time to time, where one kid may not have an issue for years, and then lo and behold, he has an issue, and a very serious issue that's caught, lo and behold, by just a average physical that they need to get to go participate in athletics. So it's smart, and if it was my child, we're going to get a physical every year. I promise you that.
Thank you. And last question, we had a parent who specifically wanted to know, will there be golf this year?
There will be golf this year. Yes, there will. And I tell you, we're doing some things in golf right now, but I want to brag on our coaches and our staff for the excellent job that they've done this summer with our summer strength and conditioning program. It's been outstanding. We've had our bumps here and there, but our numbers have been unbelievable. We've had bigger numbers this summer than we've ever had. And again, I tip my hat to our staff and to our student athletes. They've done a great job following our safety protocol that's required by the TEA and the UIL. And what we're doing right now this summer with our extracurricular activities, I'll put us up against anybody in the state, because I think we've done a great job. And I'm talking about everybody, the kids, the coaches, our trainers, our parents, and it's been very, very successful. The other thing, and I've gotten many questions about this too, is, what will practice look like? And a lot of people don't understand that we're practicing right now. The UIL, as of July 13th, has opened some things up that we can do. We're obviously doing our strength and conditioning work, but we're also doing lots of sports specific work right now. And so with our re-entry program, we've re-entered and we're practicing. And I'm very, very proud of all of our student athletes and coaches and trainers for just doing an outstanding job with it.
Awesome. Well, that's exciting and a lot to look forward to for this season.
It is. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach Felt. With that, we are going to shift over into some of our health-related questions. And not surprisingly, we had quite a few of these. Ms. Douglas, one of the most common questions that we heard recently was around the definitions of level of community spread. Could you speak a little bit about how we're defining those and what kind of information we're looking at?
Absolutely, Elena. So that is a decision and a level set in conjunction with our local health partners. And as Mr. Riddick and Dr. Atkins have mentioned, we consult with the Midland Health Department, and we also consult with Midland Memorial, because low, moderate, substantial spread is a local factor. So the CDC defines that loosely as whether we're looking at sustained uncontrolled spread or sustained controlled spread at the two highest levels. So we look at community transmission. We also look at hospitalization rates and staffing. We look at how many cases are positive when we're doing testing. And we also look at levels of community transmission cases as opposed to cases that were related to travel or household contact. So when we looked at all of those pieces, our definitions of those which are consistent with what we're seeing in other places around the state, 0 to 4% is our low rate, and that's with positive testing. 5 to 9% would be our moderate rate, and above 10% would be our high rate, consistent with what we're seeing across the state.
Thank you.
Of course.
Our next question is around isolation rooms. This parent has heard that there will be an isolation room at each campus. So what is the process to pick up your child from isolation?
That's an excellent question. And thank you to the parents for paying attention to what this will look like in the school setting. So as we work to keep our staff and students healthy and in school, each of our campuses has an identified isolation room. We want to be prepared and respond quickly when we have a student or a staff member that develops symptoms once they're already on site. So with that, we've got those isolation rooms identified, and we will contact a parent by cell phone or by telephone as rapidly as possible. Our teams will also be using Dojo and other communication devices that work well for the campus. A good reminder about that is we need each one of our parents to make sure that their Skyward contact information is completely updated. And for families that don't have family members that live here in town, I would encourage you to reach out to someone that is your nearest trusted adult. So who do you call when you need a ride somewhere? Who do you call if you have an emergency situation? And please provide that information to us so that we can respond quickly and notify you when there's a health circumstance with your student.
Thank you. So our next question is around procedures. If a child tests positive in my student's class, will the campus close? Will that class quarantine? Will parents have to quarantine? What does that look like?
Sure, those are all really good questions. And a lot of this is on a case-by-case basis for individual quarantine. From a campus and a school standpoint, as soon as we become aware of a positive case, we will look at the time frame between the time we were notified and the time the student tested positive. So based on that, in all likelihood, there will be a campus closure if the time frame indicates that we need to do that. You will receive communication from either health services if your student was identified as a close contact, or from your campus principal if your notification is a general one that says, we are writing to identify or writing to let you know that we've been notified of a case on campus. Here's what next steps you can expect. In all likelihood, we are probably looking at minimum a 3 to 5 day closure on a campus or for specific areas of that campus, depending upon the circumstance. So as far as if household members need to quarantine, that depends on the case-by-case situation. For example, if my personal student tests positive for COVID, then she must quarantine, and if she lives in my household, I must quarantine as well. So for siblings, let's say you have siblings at 2 different campuses, elementary and secondary. If you get a notice at the elementary campus that we became aware of a positive case on that campus and your student needs to self-quarantine, then your secondary student doesn't fall under that self-quarantine unless you've been advised by a healthcare provider to quarantine. So one of the things I'd like to point parents to, because there are so many individual circumstances, there's some resources on the CDC that help spell that out in a case-by-case circumstance. So I would recommend that parents look at on the CDC what to do if you get sick, and also how to prevent getting sick with COVID.
Thank you.
Will you add that? Is that added on our website?
Absolutely. We will provide those resources to parents, and also we're referring staff to those resources because there are so many individual cases and the quarantine recommendations vary by that. One note on that, if you have a student or a close household member of that student who tests positive for COVID, please follow the quarantine recommendations and notify your campus staff as soon as possible if you have a student who tests positive or is waiting for COVID test results.
Thank you. And so it's the same type of procedure if, say, it's the teacher who tests positive, correct?
Yes, and we are tracking staff information. We require for staff members to notify the district as soon as they become aware of a positive case or a diagnosis from a healthcare provider. So in that circumstance, we follow the same type of notification. So a parent may get a letter that says, we've been notified that there was a positive case on campus, and here are the things you need to do next. If your child was a close contact of that instructor or that staff member, you will receive a more personalized contact from a health services member, either your campus nurse or someone that has been the designee for that purpose. If you do not get that close contact identification, know that the letter you receive that says, we've become aware of a case, all close contacts have already been notified, we are advising that you monitor your health and contact your healthcare provider with questions or if you develop symptoms.
Thank you. So we had a couple of questions just generally asking about safety. Do you think it's safe for kids to go back to school?
Of course, and I want to reassure our parents, many of us at this table have students in the district. I have a daughter who attends Midland High, and when people ask how many children I have, I tell them 27,000.
Mm-hmm.
So only one of them sleeps at my home. So know that that concern is at our forefront as well. So that's one of the things that we look at when we look at community transmission rates, following CDC guidance, DSHS guidance, and also the best evidence we have at hand. We will be making decisions based on what our local rates look like. So one of the things I want to recommend too is I'm grateful that parents have the option for the MISD Online Academy. So at any point during this process, if our community transmission rates decrease and parents are still not comfortable sending their kids on site, they have that option.
Thank you. So, you know, you referenced the CDC earlier and some of their recommendations. One of those is around face masks. And so will students be wearing face masks?
Absolutely. All of our staff members will be required to wear face masks, and you'll see in this room, with the exception of when we're speaking directly into the microphone, we wear masks. So all staff will be required to wear masks, and all of our students in grades 3 and above will be required to wear masks while at school, in accordance with the governor's orders and in accordance with the best evidence we have right now. For any students, 3rd grade and under, we highly recommend the use of masks as they can tolerate those. We know that there aren't any major health implications for wearing a mask, with the exception of students who have documented health conditions and or they can't developmentally keep the mask on. So I want to encourage our parents, who are our first teachers, to talk with your students, practice with the mask. As Dr. Atkins said, find one that fits for them. A fabric face covering works really well. There's emerging evidence that shows it protects not only the people around me, but me when I wear it.
Thank you. So we have another parent who wants to know about temperature checks. Are temperature checks going to be done each day?
Initially, we will be doing screenings with temperature checks, and our decisions about screening, like our other health and safety decisions, will be based on community transmission rates. At this point in time, we will be doing screenings on students on site when they first arrive to school, and all staff are required to self-screen and complete a form before they come to school. So one of the things I want to do is recommend that parents join us in that effort. Before your student leaves for school, part of your morning routine needs to be the symptom check. Are your students identifying or showing any symptoms of COVID as we know them? And those can be found on the CDC website as well, which we will link. There's also a symptom checker that parents can employ for themselves and their students. So that morning routine might look like when my 17-year-old is getting ready for her senior year at Midland High, we do a symptom check. I make sure that not only she's not having a new headache or a new significant runny nose, but she doesn't have a fever before we send her to school. We will check those students once they arrive and before they board the buses.
Okay. Well, that covers our health-specific questions, so thank you very much.
Can I ask?
Of course, absolutely.
Can I ask? There was a question earlier that talked about students with immune issues and how we might respond around that. Can you share your insight?
Of course, and we have students across the entire spectrum of health needs. So I appreciate that question. We have staff and students with immune issues and immunocompromised immune systems. So with that, I want to encourage families to look at their students' individual circumstance, because no two circumstances are the same. We keep records of which students have immunocompromised health conditions. And I want to encourage you as parents to reach out to your school nurse and communicate those needs so that we have that on record. The other part of that is wearing a mask is essential to protect those students. And as Dr. Kale mentioned, you will look at the choices available to you, and the one you choose is the right one for your student. When you have specific questions, I'm going to encourage you to reach out to your campus nurse. They know your child. If you've already been attending Midland ISD, if you're new to Midland ISD, we have a nurse at all but 3 of our campuses, and those campuses have cross-covering nurses.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
With that, we're going to shift into some questions specifically from some of our elementary parents. So, Ms. Aaron, we have a parent who wants to know what how they can find out who their son's teacher will be.
Each of the campuses will have a meet the teacher night or event. This year it's going to be virtual. And at that point, then they will find out who their child's teacher will be for that year.
Great. And does that include pre-K students? Meet the teacher night for pre-K.
Yes, we always include our pre-K students all the way up through 6th grade in elementary. And they will have an opportunity to at least see a face virtually so that they will know who their child's teacher will be. That's very important to parents of young children, that they know who the teacher is going to be and that they get to know a little bit about that teacher. So that will be definitely a part of every campus.
That is great. And I know we've touched on masks a lot, but we specifically had some questions around pre-K kids and wearing masks. Are masks required for the pre-K students?
Well, I would like to talk just a little bit about that. Of course, with pre-K kids, sometimes it's a little difficult for them, but of course we want to encourage them. And I've even seen like little babies, 8-month-old and less than a year old in the grocery store, and those kids are getting used to wearing masks. Definitely, we would like to encourage the parents to get those students used to wearing masks so that they will be comfortable with that when they come to school.
Great. And what about school supplies? When can a parent look for an updated school supply list at their elementary school?
School supply list should currently be online for each of the campuses. And for those that have not posted them, the executive directors have reached out to those administrators. In most cases, it's a new administrator that was just hired, so they're just getting their feet wet and getting into their campus, but they have been notified and they should see those school supply lists online by today, if not by the end of the week.
Okay, great. Time for a little back to school shopping coming up, if that hasn't happened already. We have another parent who wants to know about things like recess. How many times a day will our elementary students get outside of their classroom?
Of course, it varies from campus to campus. Students will typically have at least one recess period a day. For some campuses, they have a recess in the morning and one in the afternoon, especially for the young learners, kindergarten and 1st grade. It is not required, but we are seeing that campuses are doing that to give students more movement.
Okay.
And I just want to add that we need to think also about outdoor learning environments, right? So that we know what interaction looks like and how the environment plays into learning. And when the weather is not inclement, too hot, too cold, what it might be to take the students outside and conduct lesson and learning outside. So those are some things that we have to really explore and get our teams to think out of the box on how can we do that to incorporate not just PE that can be conducted more outside as opposed to in the gym in our current environment. And when we get out of this environment, because it is done, how do we do recess and incorporate recess and more recess into time? And then how do we conduct outdoor learning environments and opportunities to do science and reading, not have to be enclosed in the classroom?
Okay. We had listed up there about uniforms, but we covered that in quite a bit of depth earlier. So would invite anyone who's looking for information on that to rewind a little bit to that discussion. And I'll leave you with this final question. Mrs. Aaron, a parent wants to know, what is the best way for them to help out their student with their learning if the student's at home?
Okay, and just to clarify, they want to know how they can help their students with learning at home or at the campus level.
So if
when they're at school.
the student is at home, what is the best way that the parent can help them with that day-to-day learning and acquiring new knowledge?
Right. In order to help their child in the learning process, first of all, they want to make sure that they are connected to that classroom teacher. That is significant for parents to have that open communication with the teacher, with the campus administrator. Also, we will have some tutorials that will be available for parents that need to help their children out, especially if they're not familiar with Google Classroom. If they need help with a math concept or a reading concept, tell them to reach out. If they would just reach out to the teachers and the administrators and let them know that they are struggling with how to support their children. We commend those parents that are highly engaged in learning because we want school to be fun for kids. And for those parents, if you'll reach out and get truly engaged in there as a team between the administrator, the campus teacher, and that parent, we can make that experience very delightful for their children. And we can also help them to build their self-confidence, which is a part of their social emotional health, is that they are feeling confident in the work that they're doing and the success that they're feeling at school.
And I would tell parents, you're your child's first teacher. You know your child best. And you provide us the opportunity to take your most precious gift and work with them throughout the day. And so with that, it forms a great partnership, not only built through trust, but the endeavor to move your child along and enrich them academically. So in that partnership, there's a line of communication on what you know about your child on that day, right? So through Dojo and other resources that we have to connect with a teacher, that Orlando is not having a good day, and here's why, when he's entering your classroom. So when you know that Orlando is struggling on the day, you have some reasoning and understanding of what has occurred. Orlando just lost a dog that he has loved for 15 years, or that's been in the family for 15 years, or all of his life, or of 5 years, whatever that age range may be. And so if I'm going into the classroom that way, it'd be great for the teacher to know, so that I know that he's not going to be on point on this day because, and then I know how to institute some other things to help nurture him along on that day. That's the relationship. When Orlando goes home, reading is going to be a vital point, right? So what resources can we provide for you to help you read to your child? 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just a short duration of time every day, so that there's the fluency and the comprehension, the word calling, all those things that that he is able to grasp in that aspect, and that every part of what home life is about a learning element. And so how do we incorporate those little things in this partnership so that we can get Orlando to thrive for years and years to come? That's what a great partnership looks like. And we need to understand that from you, because you know your child best, not just in that one scenario, but many, many, many more. And as we get to build that, your child gets to flourish in the environment.
And I'm so glad that Mr. Riddick mentioned about taking that time with your child. We know that the research shows that kids really need to be on reading level, and that will help support their academic success for years to come. So a parent, just how do I help my child? Reading with them, taking that opportunity to do simple math with them, exposing them to different environments and different vocabulary. That is one of the best things that a parent can do to help support their children.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, with that, we're going to shift over into our secondary landscape, and Mr. Horner is here to help us out with some of those questions. So one of the first questions we got was around crowds in our high schools. What kind of measures are we looking at for the junior highs and high schools to handle crowds?
Absolutely higher on our priority. One of the things the blended model supports, dealing with the crowded numbers at 7 through 12. So the blended model really would split the numbers in half of who's attending. So that would make it much more manageable. Beyond that, we're also looking at, we've created one-way hallways, things that we've actually had in some of our schools already. You know, the traffic patterns, just like on the road, you know, stay to the right, move in one direction, stay to the left, et cetera. You know, social distancing in the classroom. Again, the blended model supports that tremendously. And depending on how many students actually select, you know, the virtual model, that will support it as well. But really, again, the social distancing criteria that we've seen, you know, work in other places is what we're putting in place in the schools. So,
thank you. Our next question is about students leaving campus for lunch.
Lunch is a hot topic.
Not
I
a
want
loaded
to
issue
hear.
at all.
I want to hear this one. I want to hear this.
I heard Ms. Riddick say lunches and uniforms, and I have some of both. So really, 7 through 9, obviously, we've always had to close lunch. We have cafeteria plans on how we will feed students 7 through 9. The real big question is what we're doing with 10 through 12. So we've worked through a lot of variety of things. First of all, 10 through 12 are young adults, and they're already practicing social distancing this summer. They've been practicing it for a while. So our option for an open lunch will still be available. A lot of pros and cons went into making that decision. You know, we are offering extracurriculars, and our students will be moving. The way our facilities are designed, our students in 10 through 12 are moving between the ATC, between Cogdell Center, the Memorial, you know, lots of different locations. We have students that will still have waivers that are in school. We'll have them moving in and out on an hourly basis. So we are going to maintain the open lunch with security safety measures put in place when they return. But that's the current plan.
Okay, good to know. What about electives like athletics, cosmetology, CTE classes? How will those be handled?
So let me answer those separately because each one of them is a little bit different. So athletics, band, orchestra, choir, our extra and co-curricular. You already heard Coach Felt talk a little bit about athletics, but students in the virtual model will be able to, virtual academy, online academy will be able to participate in all the extracurricular activities, band, orchestra, choir, everything that's been offered, we're going to continue to offer, whether you're, you know, fully in the blended model at school or in the virtual model at home. And you heard this, pretty much the same criteria. We expect participation. We're going to give grace on, you know, getting there, things like that. But you know, we want to offer those things that we really why students, a lot of students go to school, so they're going to be continued to be offered. You know, everything from dance to cheer to, you know, all the way through athletics. You heard Coach Felt talk about summer programs. We've had cheer camps already, dance camps, things like that in the same model. Some of our early band meetings, things like that, and they've gone off really well planned, and have already gone off well. So we're going to continue to offer that, and that will be available to all students. So career and technology, though, that's a little bit different. So cosmetology was a good example. Cosmetology, there are many CTE courses that are very heavy-handed in skills-based training. Generally speaking, CTE courses will be available to virtual learners, to the at-home learner. There are some and that will require sessions of in-person. If you're a diesel student learning diesels, or you're a welding student, obviously those things that you don't have equipment at home, those kind of classes will require hands-on sessions where we can get you the actual training in the face-to-face with safety measures put in place. The last thing that we're working on right now is our Midland College dual credit courses with CTE, and we will be following their criteria. They have a strong safety plan in place, but they will require in person in a lot of situations. So the dual credit welding, the health science, the CNA certified nurses program, the programs auto tech, things like that will require in-person sessions. So it's kind of depends on what the course is. The heavier the training required, the more in person that will be required for the student. We have a list that we are finalizing right now that will go out to campuses and be available to counselors and parents, so they can see that, so they can make an educated decision around, will I choose the full online academy if I have a multitude of classes that require in person for training. And so some of that's again, it's not necessarily a Midland ISD decision. It is the industry-based programs that those certificates that they're trying to get are based around. So
okay. So our next question is specifically having to do with early college, high school. And this parent wants to know why the early college, high school calendar doesn't have to be board approved or brought before the school board in the same way that our general MISD calendar does.
yeah, absolutely. And I saw the question ahead, so let me elaborate a little bit on the question, the surroundings. So early college being at Midland College and predominantly built around college professors' courses. Much of those classes follow the Midland College calendar much more than they follow the Midland ISD calendar. So approximately 2 years ago, a discussion started, and then last spring we kind of halted the conversation about a slightly different calendar for early college, high school, due to the specific nature of some of the kids getting to those college classes rather than being on the MISD calendar. When we got to March 6th, we were having discussions, and then March 6th, we pretty much said, let's put this on the table. So although a lot of work went into it, we would definitely respect that work, and it was good planning. It made a lot of sense. Midland College had to change their calendar and their model. We had to change our model, and so once we regain a sense of what it looks like as we work through COVID, we'll reconsider what that calendar will look like. But that's why it was tabled, and that's why their calendar is still the MISD traditional calendar.
Thank you. One last question. We have a parent who wanted to know about how the ARD program will work if they are going to be in a virtual environment. Sure.
And Jennifer Warren actually spoke to this previously. The ARD process being a special ed program.
ARD or ART?
The
D.
Okay.
Admission review and dismissal. So if I said it fast, probably. So the ARD process will be the same as what Jennifer mentioned. It is pretty much a case-by-case basis. I would elaborate just one other thing in that the parent, definitely if you're in the virtual model and not seeing some of those modifications or challenges with that process, then we can call a very specific meeting to address those needs and meet with safety measures. We can meet as a family unit and the school unit together to address those again. So it's individual based on, each student in ARD is, each one has varying needs and variety of different reasons for those accommodations and modifications. So, but if you see a need once you're in that program, then ask for a meeting and we'll set it up and work through it.
Thank you. Well, with that, we are going to turn over to our final topic of questions that we received for this evening. And this is, it's around facilities, but it's a lot more than just facilities. It's really the underpinnings of our sanitization, disinfection protocols, some of those safety measures that are in place, as well as how we take care of our facilities. So Ms. Spencer, we had a couple questions on this. Specifically, and we talked about some of these earlier, but could you talk a little bit more about the procedures that are established and will be in place responding to COVID-19 and talking about some of those sanitizing and disinfection procedures?
Yeah, so specifically and most importantly, classroom spaces and throughout the school where students are every single day will be disinfected and sanitized daily to ensure that we are making every effort to mitigate any type of spread of COVID-19 or any other germs and illnesses for that matter, in order to keep our students healthy and our staff healthy and safe. In addition to that, obviously, we've talked about social distancing and how important that will be, and instructing our students and encouraging the hand washing and making those efforts daily. We will be, it's important for families to know that we will be limiting or essentially discontinuing the use of water fountains at this particular time in order to mitigate the spread of the germ. It's just impossible to sanitize or disinfect water fountains after every single use. And so we want to make sure that students are not utilizing those in order to mitigate the spread of that as well.
Okay, that's definitely a good one to know, because we know we have some kids who like to come to school with their water bottle and whatever design that is. So.
And we still encourage them to come with water, but they will not be able to refill at the water fountain.
Thank you. We had another parent who wanted to know specifically about plexiglass, like we've seen in a lot of stores. Will there be plexiglass around student desks?
So currently, no, but our maintenance department is working diligently to create and install plexiglass in common areas or high traffic areas, specifically starting with the office area and the receptionist desk, where we will have our most traffic with our parents entering in order to keep staff safe in that particular area. We are investigating sort of mobile folder type options that students could potentially utilize at their desks. But as school starts, we will be relying on masks and those types of things as we move forward.
Okay. So a couple questions around lunches. Will there be hot lunch available, or will it just be brown bag this year?
So starting the school year, and this could be a process that develops over time, of course, but in conjunction with the CDC guidelines for what is the safest, lunches will look like brown bag and boxes that at the majority of campuses will be served in the classrooms. We are encouraging that and developing processes and procedures on how to make that happen. In addition, it's important for parents to know that at the elementary level, there will be one option available, lunch option available for students every day. And at the secondary level, there will be two options available. And those, of course, will be published in advance. But again, they will either be in a box or a brown bag, whatever's most appropriate for serving that meal for that particular day. I do want to emphasize as well that for families, whatever instruction looks like, whether you're choosing a virtual option or we're in a blended learning model and students are at home, that there also will be food options available for everyone, not only students attending school, but also those who are participating in virtual instruction.
And just to interject, you saw our team do a really good job over the summer on a variety of options for grab and go curbside. So you weren't getting, in essence, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich every day. They have a variety and a way to approach the lunch choice. It's not the big array as if you were going through the cafeteria and we're able to prep and get that ready for you in what was determined a hot lunch option. But I will tell you, we know what kids prefer and what they like and are able to accommodate what that could look like in a brown bag lunch option that still has to meet the criteria of the Texas Department of Agriculture's and the requirements around calorie intake and nutrition and what that means that we have to provide for families. So we did a great job over the summer. It will carry over. We don't know how long, but it will carry over, and Mrs. Spencer and her team will help lead and guide what that could look like. So parents, if you have a finicky eater, I have those in my family. I prepared lunches for 12 years for 3 kids every day. And so if you want to, make sure that your child is getting the things that you'd like, that they like, they can brown bag it as well with the rest of us. And if not, then there'll be the options that come through the variety of meal selection that you will see online and know ahead of time what it could be. We could still do, corn dogs and things. It's just done in a different type of way so that kids can have what is a meal that they consume so that they can have the energy to perform in the classroom. Remember, it's a nutritious meal. It's not McDonald's. It's nutrition that we're providing for our kiddos.
And in addition to that, although limited, there will be a la carte options as well, as students have been used to in the past.
Now, Mr. Riddick, you brought up a really good point here I want to ask about. Speaking of McDonald's, we have some of our parents who like to bring McDonald's or some Chick-fil-A up to school sometimes.
Yes.
Is that something that's going to be permitted this year to bring your student lunch?
No. Parents, we have to work through this entire process. And I love when parents come into the school and they have the exciting lunch meal and your child is so pumped up to know that they're getting a special lunch on that day. We have to put that at a pause so that we can ensure that we're not getting that in and out traffic at the school so that we can get to what we need to do to create a good socially distanced environment from outside as well as inside. And we'll get to that point later down the line, but to begin our school year until we see that our community has mitigated this entire pandemic in a very good way, we're not going to be having visitors coming in, right? So that means no lunch visitors, and it's going to be hard for some parents. When you drop that 5-year-old off and you want to come to the campus and that's your way in to bring lunch and know that there's a good way to check in, that's not going to be an opportunity that we have at this point in time because safety of our students is paramount. And we want to ensure that you're not coming in and exposed to someone else and then taking it back to your home. And so we want to be sure that we're following all the proper protocols and guidelines, and that won't be an option at this time. It will come, it's just not right now.
Thank you for clarifying that. So, Mrs. Spencer, we had another question, and I know we've talked about lunch specifically at the high school several times already, but just to give a little more detail, at the high school level, if your student is not choosing to go off campus, are they too going to be looking at lunch in the classroom, or what does that look like for them?
So Mr. Horner has been working with high school principals specifically about what that will look like for them. Again, there'll be 2 options available, and brown bag or box lunch. And Mr. Horner may want to speak specifically about what they've been discussing regarding where that will be served.
Sorry. So yes, and I would say in all the cafeterias, the campuses are making plans to best serve using social distancing. So our CNS department has done a great job of mapping out our cafeterias. We know how many kids can fit in there in a social distancing criteria. And so at the upper levels, if we're going to let them eat in a designated area, that could be a gym, it could be a cafeteria, it could be a classroom, depending on how it takes to assign those kids to a safe spot designated away from, so we can meet social distancing criteria. It is a fact that we cannot serve them all in the cafeteria. It would take 12 lunches for just ABEL alone to do it in social distancing. So we will use a variety of spaces between the cafeteria, even the libraries, and again, the gyms and some of our outdoor areas where we can to feed them. So generally speaking, they'll be eating that box lunch, sack lunch in some kind of a designated spot. Some of them may be in a classroom, some of them may be in that bigger space like a cafeteria.
Thank you. So shifting away from meals, we have a parent who wants to know how we'll be able to control sanitizing, and are there enough people to do that?
Really good question. And Mr. Bailey, in conjunction with department leaders, have been working diligently throughout the school year, and especially at this time in order to fill any vacant positions. And department leaders have been working with principals regarding how those protocols will be implemented on specific campuses to ensure that classrooms are sanitized, cleaned, and again, going back to the entire campus, that it is sanitized and cleaned, ready for the next group of students who will enter the next day. And we will make that happen regardless of any staffing limitations that may exist. But I have spoken with department leaders specifically responsible for disinfecting and sanitizing, and am aware that based on current board action to increase salaries for specific job functions that would be responsible for those roles, that we are seeing an increase in our applications and are have many waiting in the wings to come on board and be ready to help us when school starts.
And it's not just the responsibility of
Thank
our
you.
custodial crew,
Thank you.
right?
That's where I was going.
Yeah. Yeah, great question. We do rely on teachers to help us support students who are expected, just as they would be at home, to clean up after themselves in their desk environment, their lunchroom environment, wherever they're eating their lunch, in order to support those types of things. And again, it goes back to those health and safety protocols as well, just in keeping your hands clean and keeping your areas clean in order to mitigate the risk of spread.
Thank you. Thank you for demonstrating a good practice of shielding your
Thank you for letting me know it's time to leave.
Well, on that note, with that, that covers the gambit of questions that you all submitted to us. And so I would just like to thank everyone who did take the time to submit and write your question, everyone who took the time to watch and view this. I know we went a little bit over into your evening, but really appreciate you tuning in to educate yourself for this start of school year. And finally, a really big thank you to this team that you see here in the room. They have been working tirelessly for days, weeks, and months to get school ready for your kids. So if you have questions that you didn't hear answered here, please go ahead and submit them. We are updating those FAQs daily, and we'll continue to do so.
Okay. With that, we'll bid you good night. Thank you for joining us. Stay plugged in. August 3rd is going to be our outcome. So look for delivery on August 3rd. If we come on the 4th, please don't penalize us. But our goal is to shoot for August 3rd to bring you the information best needed for how we start school. I want to thank this team, very dynamic team. You've gotten an opportunity to learn a little bit more about the inner workings of the district and see them at work and at play. So thank you for being with us. Enjoy your family. Love your kids. And we can't wait to see them come August the 19th. Thank you.